You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
This is Chip Gilchrist, voice of the Kingston Frontenacs. You're listening to OHL Overtime, an in-depth interview show highlighting the players, coaches, and broadcasters from around the Ontario Hockey League who make the league so great, as well as in-person coverage of events such as the OHL Playoffs, OHL Championship Series, OHL Combine, and more, exclusively on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Here's your program host, Brendan Caputo.
Welcome into another episode of OHL Overtime right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Thank you to everybody that's tuned in live tonight on our Armchair GM Sports Network YouTube channel and those listening the next day on your favorite on-demand audio platform. We're going to go over Game 2 of the Western Conference second-round series between the Erie Otters and the London Knights. We're going to have post-game thoughts from your Otters head coach Kris Mallette, as well as Knights forward Easton Cowan, after the Knights take a 7-2 victory in the game and lead the series 2-0 as it shifts back to Erie, Pennsylvania on Tuesday. I'm very pleased to welcome on my co-host for tonight, and that would be Colin Ward from the OHL and 60 podcast and the Dogcast on the Brantford Bulldogs audio network. Colin, thanks for sticking with us. It was a long game tonight, a long wait, and I appreciate you jumping on a late Saturday night.
Yeah, no, Brandon, thanks for having me on. I know we're still beating CBC's Hockey Night in Canada after hours, so we kind of got the Eastern time after hours tonight, so that's all good. It'll be a great time. I mean, what a game we had in Game 2 in London.
Yeah, we're going to get into the game stats, the scoring summary, and I mentioned we'll hear post-game thoughts, and we'll get Colin's player of the game later on. But, Colin, before we get going here, just really tough for the Erie Otters. They were able to get out of the first round against the Saginaw Spirit, and I know you guys talked about that in depth on the latest OHL and 60 podcast episode. But they got past Saginaw, and you knew going up against the number one seeded London Knights it was going to be a tough ask for them, especially without their captain, Carey Terrance, in the lineup, and without projected, first overall pick in this upcoming NHL entry draft in Matthew Schaefer. Nobody really gave the Otters a chance going into the series, and again, through 2 games, it's definitely been tough. What have been your first impressions of the first 2 games of the series?
I think it's a different – I mean, obviously, the Erie Otters aren't facing the Saginaw Spirit like they were in the first round. London's a real deal. They've brought the intensity the first 2 games, no questions asked from the Knights, and that's what you expected. They're battle-tested. They've been there before, right? We've seen them in this situation the last 3 seasons. This is no new thing for them. For the Erie Otters, it is. It's been a long time since the Otters have been in the second round, and it's one of those things when you have Terrance out and you have Schaefer out, those are 2 massive identity pieces of how the Erie Otters play the game up front, and obviously on the back end with Matthew Schaefer. Matthew Schaefer, quite frankly, would be playing 40 minutes a night so far in the first 2 games in this series. And I think when you see Erie, they just haven't played their game. In the first round with the Saginaw Spirit, we saw some run and gun. And we talked about this at length, like you mentioned on the OHL 60 podcast, where, the Saginaw Spirit, they score a lot, but they give up a lot of chances. The Otters scored on those chances. And if you're going to play a run and gun game in Saginaw's side of things against Erie, you're going to get scored on. And that's where Erie really did a good job capitalizing on it. And the London Knights just don't make defensive mistakes that the Saginaw Spirit do. That's quite frankly what we saw in the first 2 games. We saw a lot in Game 1. We saw a lot tighter checking game. We saw a round 2 tight game, tight defensive hockey, good checking. The Otters were really engaged physically. They really took away some space the Knights. The Knights really had to earn that Game 1 victory. Game 2, it just wasn't the Erie Otters. It just was not the Erie Otters we were accustomed to seeing so far in the last half of the season that we saw when they didn't get blown out in a lot of games. And 7-2 and the way the game went, they just chased the game. And the game just wasn't easy for them tonight in London. And that's a tough arena, right? It's a tough arena when there's 9,000 people against you and the game's not going your way. And it's not an easy game, right? You're kind of fighting it a little bit. And it's tough. It's like a pitcher in baseball. You just can't find your release point, right? It's tough when you're fighting it. And that's kind of what we saw tonight from the Otters standpoint.
Yeah, and again, when you're the road team coming into an environment like this, Colin, I mean, you've been coming to the Bud and now Canada Life Place since you were a kid, so you know the atmosphere that this place can bring, and over 9,000 in the building. For away teams coming in, it can sometimes be one of those things where it's a little bit too much to take in at times. I know Erie plays here quite often, being in the Western Conference, but for a playoff game, it's just a different atmosphere when you got over 9,000 cheering against you in the building.
Oh, 100%, Brandon. Canada Life Place, and correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes I'm going to accidentally slip in the Bud just because I missed that. I mean, growing up, it was the Bud, right? So every time talking to my dad or my buddies, we're going to the Bud Friday night. The Knights play, we're going to the Bud. But anyway, yeah, Canada Life Place can be a tough atmosphere to play in, and you got to make the life easy for you. And so is Erie. Erie's going to be a tough place for the London Knights on the same side, but it's just such a hard arena. I remember going to games as a kid, and back when it was the House of Green, and you get you can feel the building shake, and it's intimidating down at the ice. Speaking of draft day, Brandon, I just want to share a quick story. The year Dalton Duhart got drafted, and there's a name for you.
That's a name and a half.
Oh yeah, the year he got drafted, my dad and I were at the playoff game. It was against the Erie Otters. Speaking of Erie, second round matchup. We were sitting beside him, and the Knights had a huge third period comeback. They were down. Max Jones walks off the wall, finds a way to go to the net and beats Troy Timpano, another name for you, Brandon. And the place goes nuts. And I'll never forget this. My dad and Dalton sat right beside us, and it was so cool. And I'm just going to mention it. My dad was sitting beside him, and he goes, it's crazy. Next year, this time, you're going to be on the other side of this, on the ice. And just the look on Dalton's face was like, oh my, can't wait. I'm excited. So that's one of my stories on the playoff, Canada Life, Budweiser Gardens at the time. It's just a fun atmosphere to go in. Brandon, being with the Ice Dogs, me with the Bulldogs, that once a year when you go into that arena, when the schedules come out, you're thinking, that's the place. That and the Auditorium in Kitchener are the two places that, for an Eastern Conference standpoint, you're excited to go to. You're excited to go to those venues. You only get to go once a year, and it's always kind of an event when you go there. They do a really good job in game. And it's always bumping. And when they hand out those clappers too, it feels like there's 15,000 people there instead of 9. And it feels like you just can't hear yourself think sometimes, not a building when everyone's standing and everyone's in the game. It can be quite the atmosphere. So I was lucky enough to grow up going to the Knights games, being a Knights fan growing up as a kid. Definitely got spoiled, as you know, Brandon, no pun intended, but it was a great, I was very lucky to grow up growing to these arenas because it was quite the spot.
Yeah, and I know the EIA is going to be rocking there for games 3 and 4. I know they have the whole, Sweet Caroline, London sucks, and I know, it's going to be a raucous crowd there as the Knights shift back to Erie for games 3 and 4 on Tuesday and Thursday. But we'll get further here, Colin, with our game stats tonight. When you look at it, no real lineup changes for either team. Still without Terrance and Schaefer on the Otter side, and no change in that as well. Pretty much the same lineup, so nothing to really go over there.
Yep.
As far as just a few tweaks here and there with the line combos. But shots on goal, 42-24 in favor of the Knights. They led in all 3 periods, 14 in the first, 17 in the second, and 11 in the third. It just seemed like from start to finish, well, again, Erie got the first goal again for the second straight game, which we'll get into. But, from start to finish, the Knights just put a lot of pressure on Noah Erliden, and then especially Charlie Burns when he came in the second period.
Oh, 100%. And London really beefing up that top line, right? When you see O'Reilly down the middle with Barkey and Cowan on his wings, that's tough to beat. Those are 3 NHL type talents that could also be elite talents at the NHL level. I mean, Easton Cowan, it speaks for himself. Denver Barkey and Sam O'Reilly being a first-round pick by the Edmonton Oilers, right? That's a lot of firepower you're going to beat. And then they just have so many different elements to their lineup for the London Knights where it can just be so challenging from an Otter standpoint without guys like Terrance and Schaefer, who log so many minutes up front and on the back end. You put extra pressure on the Alfanos, the Panofemuses. You put so much pressure on those guys, right, where you're playing extra minutes and you can't focus on your game, right? It's hard to chip in offensive because you're playing defensive and the Knights just come in waves at you. And that's kind of what you see, right? Like the Otters having 7 power play opportunities, Brandon, going 2 for 7 really isn't bad. I mean, you get 3 out of 10, you're at 30%, right? Like, so we'll see. There's going to be adjustments being made as they get home ice in Erie, and you get the last change, and that's a big momentum switch for the Otters. Because realistically, you're never out of a series till you lose on home ice, and that's the most truth you could ever say in the postseason. And the next game's always the hardest for the London Knights standpoint, but the Knights with their lineup, they just have so many different elements that we've saw in these first 2 games, and Saturday night they really showcased that, Brandon.
Yeah, they absolutely did. And again, when you have got 12 or 13 guys with NHL affiliation to their name, it's really tough. And you'll hear Kris Mallette saying, we're giving these guys a little bit too much respect out there, which you can, but you don't want to crown them by just saying, they have so many of those guys. But it's just really tough when you're going up against a team that, their third line has NHL prospects on it. It's just tough for a depth standpoint and matchup standpoint when, you can throw out a top 9 that could be a top line on most teams.
Well, 100%. That's the thing, right? The London Knights don't take periods off. The Erie Otters, how many games did they win in that first round matchup against the Saginaw Spirit, Brandon, with one heck of a period where they scored 4 or 5 goals in a period? That's rare to do. Not a lot of teams score 4 goals in a period in a playoff game, right? That's tough to do when it's so magnified. The London Knights, if I was a betting man, I wouldn't bet on that, scoring 4 goals in a period against the London Knights, right? So I think that the way they have to play, it's almost as if the way they had to play in years prior, the Erie Otters in the Stan Butler system, where you got to play a game, a 2-1 game, a 3-2 game. It's hard to play the London Knights with so much firepower. Let's be honest, they're outmatching the London Knights, or they're outmatching the Erie Otters right now. The London Knights, the Erie Otters cannot match up right now in London. It's shown that in the first 2 games. The firepower the Knights have, they've been all over the Erie Otters. So it's tough. I think you got to change a couple things in the system. I think you got to have that forward. I know it's tough, but I think you got to have that center not cheat a little bit for offense. You got to be back in the D zone. You got to have 3 guys back. Because if you give London odd man rushes, you're going to capitalize on it more often than not, right? So that's kind of where I come from watching the game tonight. You kind of saw a lot of opportunities given up on the 3-on-2s around the net. One of the 4, we have 3s not back to pick up the trailer, right? Like stuff like that is things that you can clean up. That's something that I expect the Otters to clean up on home ice. I don't expect the Otters to give up that many odd man rushes. I also don't expect them to get 7 power play opportunities on home ice. That's a lot for the playoffs, so we'll see what happens there. But I think that there's a lot of things systematically that the Otters have to clean up. You're not going to change systems right now in the postseason. Your system is what it is, but you got to change up spacing. You can't give up that much space. And as you mentioned, Brandon, you can't give them too much respect to where the Otters just roll over and let the Knights walk through them in a 4-game series. You can't do that. You got to play your game. At the end of the day, if you're the Otters, you just got to look back and say, hey, we're down 2 games. We're going on home ice. You're not out of a series till you lose at home. Play your game. Play loose. Play loose. If the Otters come out and they get the first goal tonight, they did get the first goal, but if they come out and they get the second and they start to get back into this game, right, and like they don't give up 4 straight goals like they did tonight, it's a 2-2 game instead of 4-1 or 4-2. It's just a different outcome. You just got to find a way to chip away. You got to play hard defensively. And quite frankly, it felt like you mentioned, the Otters just gave too much respect tonight to the London Knights. And when you do that, the Knights get that a lot. And when you do that, they have wins like that.
Erie was 2 for 7, as you mentioned, on the power play. They started off 2 for 3, but then they didn't get anything on their final 4 power plays. And London was actually 0 for 4, a rare 0 for 4 night for the Knights. They didn't need it because they played so well a 5-on-5. But for the Knights to go 0 for 4 on the power play and still score 7 goals, I mean, that's pretty impressive. But from the Erie side, I mean, they've been scoring on the power play and they've been getting the leads in these games, but then they give up 4 goals in a stretch where the Knights just kind of take over the games. And as you mentioned, like that's just those stretches and periods for Erie are really killing them right now because they got off to a hot start in both these games. First goal scored, but just not able to really hold the fort here with 4 unanswered again for the Knights.
100%. It feels like the second period has been the big period in the series and in the Otters postseason run. You'll see them have a big second period in Saginaw. They get a win. Tonight, albeit you give up 2 in the second, but at a pivotal spot, right? It's 4-1 after 1. Knights come out halfway through the second. They get a goal. They're up 5-1. That essentially said, okay, it feels like that's enough. That's enough to end this game. It felt like the Knights were in the driver's seat right after that. And when you watch the series, when you watch the Otters, that next goal is going to be so crucial for them in the postseason, because when they find a way to come in waves, when they in the Saginaw series, they're fine. They are fine, but it's been tough. It's going to be tough to string offense together like that against the London Knights. They're such a good team, right, defensively, and they're such good structure, and they're always in lanes. They don't give up a lot of space. It feels like the Otters, you're going to have to find a way to get that next goal. I know it's tough when the Knights give one up. Majority of the time, that bounce back, they're right back, and they're on momentum. They're on the pucks. They're hard in the O zone, right, and they're hard on the forecheck. They retrieve pucks. They get puck hungry, all the basics, but it just feels like they have to find a way. And it sounds like the frustration's creeping in a little bit, but you're not out of it until you lose at home. And we'll see what happens here. It's hard to describe it with the way the Knights are playing, right? Like, you're 2 for 7 on the power play. You get opportunity. Just that next opportunity that you get, you just got to find a way to score and move on. They've scored a lot of goals here in the postseason. Home ice, you never know. I wouldn't change much until you get home. If you lose game 3, then you're going to have to change a lot. But honestly, if Matthew Schaefer and Kerry Torrance come into the lineup, Brandon, they're going to be a lot more competitive in these games. Tonight's probably a different outcome, right?
Yeah, it just sounds like neither of those guys. Torrance maybe a little bit farther ahead than Schaefer, but both, if they'd come back in the series, I think a lot of us would be surprised. Face-offs tonight, 33-27 in favor of London. Their best face-off man on the dot was Will Nickel, 15-19, and Jacob Julian was 8-14. Sam O'Reilly had a terrible night on the dot, 2-14. Don't usually expect that from Sam O'Reilly, but he's going up against Pano Femus, who is one of the best face-off men in all the Ontario Hockey League. Broke a record for the most face-off wins this season. He was 16-25. Gabriel Frasca, 9-14, and Callum Hughes, a rough night, 2-13. But again, just the Knights pretty much from after the 5:57 mark when Erie got the lead, pretty much dominated the play in this game and really didn't allow Erie to have a chance back in. Colin, we'll move forward here with the scoring summary tonight. And as I mentioned, for the second straight night, the Erie Otters get on the board first. It's Sam Alfano on the power play. After the Pano Femus shot, he kind of picks up the rebound and shovels it past Austin Elliott to give the Otters a lead, and you're thinking, okay, is this deja vu again where Erie gets the lead and quiets the over 9,000 here for a short time being? But I guess that's one positive you can take if you're Erie.
Yeah, you scored first, you got up on them. It's just about stringing shifts together, right? You got to build off that, and that's been the one thing. When they start to get momentum in a game, they just can't sustain it.
Yeah, and then there's, excuse me, as we go forward here, Will Nickel takes a shot from the left wing. I think that's one that Erliden should have had to even the game up. It was short side, and we've seen Noah Erliden play really well at times this season for the Erie Otters. I think that's one he's definitely going to want back. And then Denver Barkey, after coming out of the penalty box after a weird sequence where, there was a play behind the net and Erliden's helmet came off, and then Barkey kind of swiped his helmet away with his stick and got a penalty for it.
Yeah.
That whole sequence took way too long to figure out, and 2, it was just totally unnecessary when Erliden's helmet came off, and then all the stuff behind the net. There was possible spearing there that they were trying to look at too. But
a little fun on a Saturday night in London.
Yeah, but right after that, Denver Barkey comes out of the penalty box and is able to bat it in off the rebound. And again, Denver Barkey continues to be an amazing captain for this London Knights team on and off the ice. He has another big night, which we'll cap off, but gives them the lead there in the first period before then Blake Montgomery. And this was a weird one, Colin, because Adani Femus came down the wing, or came down from the point, took a shot, but it didn't hit the net. It bounced off of somebody. It came back off the wall behind the net. It was bouncing around, and Blake Montgomery, with his best baseball impersonation, is able to kind of bat that one in. And right there, it's 3-1 Knights at the end of the first after Erie had got off to the 1-0 lead.
Yeah, no, 100%, right? And it felt like the Knights just found a way after getting up that first goal. They just owned that first period. They played their game, and the Knights were definitely a proactive team, right? You know, shoot up 14-5 in that frame, like for the shooting the Otters 14-5. I mean, you took it to them a little bit for the Knights. You're definitely feeling good going into the room to start the second.
And then after that, it was in the second period, you were wondering how Erie was going to kind of come out and respond there.
Yep.
But midway through the second period, Landon Sim kind of comes down the right circle there and wrists one. I don't know if that's one that you think Erliden should have had again. We've seen him make a lot of great saves. It was placed so perfectly from Landon Sim that you can almost not blame Erliden for that one. But
yep.
Just with it was a weird angle, and he was able to kind of put that one over top of him to make it 4-1. And you're thinking, okay, here we go again, where this Knights onslaught comes, and will Erie have a response in the second?
Yeah, you know, that's the thing, right? Can they respond? Can they get that next goal? Can you get string a couple shifts together, get a couple bounces, right? You never know what can happen.
Then we had Gabriel Frasca scoring the Otters' second goal on the power play. Both their goals coming with the man advantage tonight. It was a shot in the power play, wristing one from the high circle to make it 4-2 at that point. And then we had we also had a fight between Wesley Royston and Cam Allen. It was after Mishiak took that hard hit from Allen where he kind of went awkwardly head first into the boards, and it didn't look good originally, but he was able to be helped off the ice under his own power. But it was a scary play, and I think Royston wanted to kind of stick up for his fallen teammate there, and him and Allen dropped the gloves. Yeah,
spirited tilt. A lot of talk of the face-off thought too, right? That's where all these rekindles a little bit, little hate, little fun in the workplace, and all of a sudden you go back, you think cooler heads prevailed, and then you line up beside a guy in the face-off dot, and it's like, hey, I remember you from 10 seconds ago, and the sparks start flying again. And yeah, I thought maybe that was going to be a bounce for the Erie Otters. That was a big player for the London Knights. You go to the box, and London has a ton of big players, but it's a spirited tilt, right? And I think that's what Erie needed in the game. Not to say that we condone it, but there's a time and a place, and I thought that was definitely the time and a place. A player on your team, a teammate of yours, gets hit awkwardly into a boards. You think it was a dirty hit, and you ask him to answer the bell, and you go. And I think that's part of the game. It's playoff hockey, and I think that's kind of where I thought Erie was going to get a little bit of momentum in the game.
5 fights through the first 2 games, Colin, between these two Western Conference rivals.
And you know what that means? Midwest Division hockey. I've seen that my whole life. Growing up, like I said, growing up a Knights fan, saw that my whole life. If the Kitchener Rangers were able to come back in the series after being down now 2-0 to Windsor, and it doesn't matter who they play, the Knights or Otters, whoever goes to the next round, it's going to be the same thing. And that's the way the Otters too. They play a hard-nosed game. They've always had those guys on the Otters. They've always had that guy that plays on a line. The Knights have always had a guy like that forever. The Rangers, the Spitfires, all these teams in the West, it's Western Conference hockey, right? And we're not accustomed to seeing this in the East, right, Brandon? But you see this in the West, and it's like, oh, wow, the fireworks are flying, It felt like we were in the 90s, 2000s a little bit. Growing up a Red Wing fan, I thought there was a bunch of Darren McCartys on the ice, two-way tough guys.
Yeah, it's definitely been a spirited tilt, pun intended, through the first 2 games. Yeah. Then something odd happened because Erliden was having problems with his mask the whole night leading up to this point. I don't know what was going on there, if it just wasn't tight enough or what have you, but Charlie Burns ends up coming into this game, Colin. And again, tough spot for a backup goalie to come in, a young goalie, inexperienced in the playoffs, and Charlie Burns. Coming into a building in London, welcome to the OHL playoffs. You're playing in front of 9,000, and you're already down 4-2 at that point. And he was doing okay until late in the second period was the real dagger, in my opinion, Colin. It was Easton Cowan taking the pass off the half wall, and he just kind of was able to skate through, went all the way through the neutral zone, all the way down the left wing, and was able to really beat Nathan Sauter to the puck and to the net. Like, Sauter was having a real hard time trying to keep up with the Toronto Maple Leafs first-round prospect, and he made a real nice move to go to the backhand and made it 5-2 with 9.9 seconds left. You felt like that was really the one that put it away for London.
Yeah, that's tough going up a goaltender, Brandon. It's so hard when you come in relief like that. It's so tough. It's tough to be getting that mindset, especially when you come into the second period like that. The first period, it was kind of nice. If you're going to come into a game, you want to come in early, right? You're still fresh. You just had warm-ups. You still feel the ice a little bit, but when you come in like that in the second, third period, it's hard to find the net. You drift a little bit. You get out of position a little bit. You got to feel the post, right? Post to post. And it felt like this goal, it felt like Burns just outplayed the one side and left the opposite side of the net wide open for Cowan. That's what it kind of looked like. He lost the angle a little bit, and that's going to happen. And right away, that's what I thought. I go, well, I've been through that before. When you lose your angle, right, when you come in like that, it's so hard to find your angle, and that's kind of what I thought on that goal. And Easton Cowan's an incredible hockey player, right? He's an NHL talent playing in the OHL. That's kind of those guys are going to score 10 times out of 10. When they make good reads, right? And you let them make a read, they're going to score 10 times out of 10 on those opportunities like that. And that's just what happened there in my mind. You got to tip your cap to the shooter. It's a circumstance where the goaltender's coming in like that cold, and that's a heads-up play by Easton Cowan.
Luckily, the third period went by a little bit quicker. Cowan got his second a minute 8 into the third period to make it 6-2. Stretch pass from Barkey, fake slap shot, went 5-hole. Really nice play there.
Yeah.
And then the seventh goal was a real beauty too. Not that it really mattered, but Cowan to Barkey behind the net with a nice little touch pass, and then he just makes a nifty behind the back pass and completely fooled Burns on this one for Henry Brustevich getting the easiest tap-in of his OHL career, and he pointed to Barkey immediately for that assist on that goal, and just capped off what was another offensive onslaught by the top players of the London Knights. A goal and 3 assists for Barkey, 2 goals and assists for Cowan.
Yeah, it feels like when the London Knights win, and they win a lot, it feels like when they win, it feels like later on in the games when they get up like this, the 6th goal was a pretty goal through the 5-hole. The 7th goal, what can you do about it, right? Like, it feels like they start to score the pretty goals because they're so skilled, and the way they play the game, you're playing with a ton of confidence, rightly so. You're up 6-2 at the time, and when you have a future high pick in the NHL draft from Brustevich, and you see Barkey and you see Cowan out there, future NHL guys, it's hard to defend when you're down 6-2 and you're thinking, all right, let's just get the post-game meal and get on the bus.
1, 2, 3, 4 players for the London Knights with multi-point games tonight, and again, you just felt like there were a couple guys +4 in this game for the Knights, and I feel like whenever it's Barkey and Cowan leading the way for this team, and they've been doing it for 3 seasons now, it feels like. The Knights just, I don't want to say unstoppable, but more nights than not, as you mentioned, the Knights win a lot. When 7 and 86 are on their game, London wins, and they are able to put up big numbers like this.
Oh, absolutely they are. I mean, when you're getting 3 points a night from those 2 guys, you're going to win more often than not, right? And, they've been so lucky. The Knights have been so lucky, and fans have been so lucky to see those guys play for the last couple seasons, right? And, you throw Oliver Bonk in the mix, you throw Sam Dickinson in the mix, you throw Hunter Brustevich now in the mix, Casper Haltonen, you throw those guys all in the mix, and it's like there's so many layers to their game, Brandon, where it's like if it feels like, if Haltonen has a quiet game, Denver Barkey's going to have 3 points, so, it doesn't matter. In a quiet game, the Haltonen's 2 points? That's just the way they are. And I think that the way that when they get the puck, when Cowan and Barkey get the puck, they have that mindset, and it's so uncanny to where they know what they're doing with the puck before they get it, and they're so good with their feet. They're so good on their feet, with the puck. They get to spots where you think you got them, right? When Denver Barkey and Easton Cowan, you think you got them. You think you got them manned up, you got them boxed out, and all of a sudden they just make a little twitch, they get there, they're on the other side of the ice, they're wide open, walking off the boards, going downhill toward the net for the scoring chance. It feels like at least 3 times a period tonight, Brandon, we saw that. And they're so tough. You're not going to keep them off the score sheet when you're getting 6 to 9 scoring chances in a playoff game for Barkey and Cowan, and they're so good because they generate their own chances. You can box them out, you can play them man on man, you can shadow them all game, and it feels like it's not good enough that's why you got to tip your cap to them because they're just that good.
7-2 is the final here tonight from Canada Life Place in front of a crowd of 9,061, so just short of a sellout here. Only 9,000, I would say only 9,000 fans here at Canada Life Place, and we're going to hear more post-game reaction. We'll hear from Kris Mallette, the head coach of the Erie Otters, as well as London Knights forward Easton Cowan on the other side of things. So stay right here. Be right back on OHL Overtime right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Back after this.
The great guys over at Hockey Stick Man are sponsoring this video. If you play hockey but are sick of paying upwards of $400 for top-end sticks, check these guys out. There's seriously no better place to shop. The guys are fun, easy, and offer a stress-free experience from start to finish. They get pro stock sticks from major junior teams right up to the NHL teams and sell them for half the price that the same stick would sell for at a retail store. To further support their mission of saving hockey families money, they offer closeout options, which entail taking last year's retail models and blowing them out for less than wholesale prices. It's literally the best prices on the internet for their sticks. And the best sticks of all may be their Pro Blackout series, which provide a top-end stick with no graphics and literally less than half the price of a branded top-end retail model. It's always been their best-selling stick despite super cool pro stock options. It's a no-brainer to shop with these guys, and trust me, they are beauties. Head over to hockeystickman.ca/thearmchairgm and get $15 off your first order. That's hockeystickman.ca/thearmchairgm to get an additional $15 off your first order when you sign up on their website. Check out our friends at Hockey Stick Man. Fourth Wall is the official merchandise supplier of the Armchair GM Sports Network. Our user-friendly site is print to order with no minimum items or inventory needed, shipped right to your doorstep safely and efficiently from their North American warehouse. All of our logos are available to supporters, listeners, and viewers can have the best variety available to them for their swag preferences. All items are priced as low as possible, allowing everybody who wants to support our business with the opportunity to do so, receiving quality and comfortable products in return. Shop today at fourthwall.com with the direct link to our Armchair merch store in the description of all episodes and in the bio of all of our social media accounts. Become an Armchair GM today with Fourth Wall.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
Welcome back to part 2 of our OHL playoff game recap right here on OHL Overtime on the Armchair GM Sports Network for Game 2 of this second round Western Conference series between the London Knights and the Erie Otters. Brandon Caputo joined alongside Colin Ward from the OHL in 60 podcast. Here to continuing to react and break down what was London taking a convincing 2-0 series lead as it shifts back to Erie early next week. Thank you to everybody tuned in live on our Armchair GM Sports Network YouTube channel and those listening the next day in your favorite on-demand audio platform. Make sure to give us a follow on X at Armchair GM Pod, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for all of our great short reels as well. And you can check out this week's OHL in 60 podcast, special 2-hour episode from Colin Ward and Reese Dumaney. But back here on OHL Overtime, continuing to break this one down here, Colin, before we get to Erie Otters head coach Kris Mallette and London Knights forward Easton Cowan. I was just going over it in the break. 32 penalties in this game, Colin, and there was a couple of misconducts at the end. I believe there were 4 players sent off. Lucas Ambrosio, Ryder Bolton, no shock there, Noah Reed, and Henry Brustevich were all shown the gate with almost a minute or less than a minute left in the game. But 32 penalties, as you mentioned, Midwest hockey. This game took an eternity tonight with the amount of stuff that was going on after the whistle. But, are you shocked with the 32 different penalties tonight?
Yeah, all joking aside, Midwest hockey, that's the way it is. But I don't think that can keep up for the next 2 to 4 games, however long this series goes. I don't think this can keep up. I think both coaches know that, Dale Hunter's been around a long time, and Kris Mallette's a successful coach in this league, where I think the message is going to be you can't keep this going over a long time if you want to have a successful playoff run. And I think it takes away from the ability of what your game plan is, your execution of your game plan. I think it all takes away when there's just so much lack of flow into a game, right? And I know there's a lot of complaining tonight in the penalty boxes from players at the officiating in the game, right? But if you stay to the box and if you don't get into the extracurricular stuff, the stuff that can be prevented, none of that's happening, right? And it kind of, you get more flow to the game, and we're not recording right now at 11:30 p.m. That's just the way that would be. That's why I think the message is going to be here going up into game 3 that, the London Knights have a lot of different elements to their game, and they have that physical presence, but I think it takes away from the skill. And for the Erie Otters, they cannot get into a game like that. When it's a game when it's a penalty parade to the box, I think that favors a lot of Knights to a T. They're the deeper team. They had the better trade-offs tonight, no questions asked about that one. And I just think that's where the Otters get into trouble. So definitely from the Erie side, I think that's a thing that they need to tame out. I think it's something that obviously it's playoff hockey and emotions get high, but that's something that needs to be prevented here as we get into game 3 in Erie.
Great point there, Colin. And again, they need to kind of stay away from sort of that funky business. Yeah. We're going to hear a little bit about that from Kris Mallette, the head coach of the Erie Otters right now. So here is what he had to say following his team's 7-2 loss here in London, and now down 2-0 in the series, and their thoughts going back home to play in the EIA on Tuesday.
A little bit, just general thoughts on the game.
Yeah, I think that we beat ourselves. I mean, when you're wasting a lot of energy worrying about what, some of the things that gone on in the game that were out of our control, you're wasting a lot of energy that way. And I think that our execution suffered because of it. And that, I think we just are respecting our opponent way too much at this point. We've got to have that belief within our room that, we're here for a reason.
Early in the game, a couple of big chances, just kind of unable to come away with some of those. But, what'd you like about the start and maybe not like so much about the second half of the game?
Yeah, I think that obviously, some of the goals that they did score, right from the inside, where we typically protect a lot better. We got a little loose, doing our own job. And I thought the start was decent. Obviously score early. Power play, special teams were good there on that side of things. But as the game wore on, I think just deviating from that plan got the better of us.
What's the key to tightening things up a little bit more defensively heading back home to Erie?
Just doing our own job. I think the commitment to, trying to stop the puck, their motion. They're a good skating team that moves well. If we're going to sit there and try and chase it, they're going to expose us. So we've got to stay within and true to our system.
Coach, it was almost like deja vu there. You scored the opening goal for the second straight game, and you got off to a hot start there, and then they come back and with a couple of goals and momentum. What do you think in your team get off to that hot start? How do you guys kind of keep them from getting back in the game there?
Well, a really good team that preys on your mistakes, right? And I think that if you're trying to force the issue and trying to beat them through the middle of the ice, it's real tough. They clog it up very well, and they're able to, you see those high flip 50-50 pucks. They do it best within the league, and they stay true to their game plan. And I think that our guys at times were just trying to force it more often than not, and didn't really have that support that we needed all the time.
Tough spot for Charlie Burns going in there at that point in the game. Early in something going on with his helmet and everything like that. Was that a coaching decision, or was that performance based?
Yeah, just a decision. I think that there was just something different, but credit to Chucky. He went in there. I thought he big save early. Yeah, he let a couple in, but I thought that he competed, big breakaway save. So good on him for jumping in as cold as he was.
And then what's the message now going back home? Obviously going to need to pick up a win back there, but it's always a great atmosphere for London versus Erie. What are you hoping to see from your fans back at Erie Insurance Arena as you guys go into Game 3?
Oh, I'm not worried about our fans. I know that our fans will be there with bells on. Our group, it's the first to 4. That's playoffs. Like it's not the first to 2 or 3. We've got an opportunity to go back to a place that we're very comfortable with. With our fans, as that sixth man out on the ice. So our guys just have to go back, get a good night rest in their own bed, and get ready to work.
There was Erie Otters head coach Kris Mallette on the postgame. Colin, what were your takeaways from what the Erie Otters bench boss said tonight?
I swear I never heard, Brandon, what the interview before we went on air, because the first two questions, or the first two answers were perfect. I mean, they over-respected London Knights tonight, right? And when you take that parade to the penalty box, it doesn't let you play your game, and you get out of your system, right? And it feels like you're chasing the game, and the game gets a lot harder for you than it is. And let's be honest, it's a hard game to play. Playoff hockey is a hard game to play. It's a mental grind. It's a physical grind. And when you don't make it easy for yourself with the penalties, and the trips to the box, the odd man rushes against, get out of your rush lane, stuff like that, it's tough to beat the London Knights, right? And also, Ben, I like the last point too about when it's the first of 4 games. It's the best 4 out of 7. Each win gets harder and harder for the London Knights. I mean, or the Erie Otters. But, win 1 and win 2, but win 3 and 4 get even harder. And I think that's why I expect the Erie Otters to come out flying on home ice for Game 3. I really do. I expect that pace. I expect the Otters to play their game on home ice. Not that it's a make or break game, but I just think for their confidence, I expect them. Maybe they score first, maybe they get a second goal and build off that. But I think if the Otters are going to play their system, I think Game 3 is the game they're going to do it, Brandon.
What are your thoughts on Erliden? Do you think, obviously, health aside, if he's 100% to go, it was odd when he came in. You didn't know if that was, like I asked him, performance-based or something going on with his helmet, but I would assume that number 1 would be back in the net for Game 3.
Yeah, the mask is going to get fixed, and he's going to play. That's interesting. The mask, those buckles come off all the time. You see it all the time in National Hockey League, right? Almost every other game, you'll see that. If you watch 3 NHL games in a night, at least one of them, you're going to see a mask come off like that. Shots are hard. Those clips now at this time of the year are, they're hanging on by a thread. It's like neck guards. You always see a neck guard out all over the ice at this time of the year. The Velcro starts to go. On these ones, the clips, they start to go. It's been a lot. Every single commercial break, right? They're coming on and off. I think that it's one of those where it'll be fine. I think you just change the clips, and I think Erliden should be the starter. I mean, I wouldn't think anything of Burns starting in Game 3, but you never know. He did look good tonight, and I mean, it sounds like Mallette's pretty high on him, but I think they go back to Erliden. I think he's their guy, and I don't think there's anything to make of it.
100%. We'll continue on with our post-game interviews here with London Knights forward Easton Cowan, Toronto Maple Leafs 2023 first-round pick, now with 6 goals and 10 assists in only 6 playoff games. Let's hear what he had to say following the game tonight.
How do you get off the wall? There's like 10 seconds left, and you go around Sauter, who's a big guy, right? Squeeze by him and make a power move to the net. Is that just tell me about that one?
Well, yeah, every day in practice, we're practicing against, a really good team. We're a good team. So when I'm coming to practice, I'm going against Dickey, Bonk, Allen, Brustevich, Woolley, Fimis, Spencer, PJ. Those are all good 8D. You know what I mean? So practice makes perfect, and when I'm in a game, you got to be able to read the play, and I felt like I read it pretty good there, and just use my body position to help me out.
Do you get around those guys too, Bonk and Dickinson?
A couple of them. It's hard, man. They're elite, boys. It's elite.
And you at Denver, we talked about it last game with Denver. You guys are playing at a very high level right now. How about the first 2 games in the series? Do you feel comfortable playing against these guys?
Yeah, we feel really good. I mean, Barks is a heck of a player. Love playing with him. I mean, I've played with him since I was 16, so to see our chemistry, still paying off means that a lot. And then Peanut, an elite centerman, 2-way, makes plays all over the ice. She's a really good player, so I feel like we fit really well together, and excited to keep it going.
And they made you cool your heels on that. It felt like 10 minutes before they sorted out that one where Erliden knocked his mask off. What did they tell you guys about that?
Not much. We just kind of chilled. We calmed down the bench a bit. Obviously, you're getting hyped up during the game, so we calmed it down and just had a good shift right after.
Okay, and Dylan took one in the eye. How'd he look, or how's he feeling?
He looked really tough. I think he's doing good. I hope he's good. But yeah, we'll see tomorrow. Hopefully he's good.
Okay, going there, are you going for the kill to get both games there?
I'm not worried about game 4. I'm worried about game 3 right now. Well, in fact, I'm worried about practice tomorrow. So
You guys got to practice tomorrow?
I don't know. Maybe I'll get the day, but just day by day, and we'll keep it going. But yeah, just worried about tomorrow, and then we'll worry about game 3 when it comes.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Does anything change, Easton, when you go from being a home team to a road team, maybe try to silence the crowd with the first goal or anything like that?
Yeah, we know their fans are going to be loud. They hate us, and they're going to use their fans, their momentum. So good teams find a way to win on the road, and that's what we got to do.
And what has it been about the last 2 games? Because Erie scored the first goal in both games, but you were able to battle back, score 4 unanswered in both games. What was it about them getting off to a hot start? You guys didn't let that bother you?
Yeah, it just shows our character on this team. We got to keep it going. I felt like our start was a bit slow there, but then we picked it up and we had a good, 55 minutes. So let's try to do a good 60 minutes next game.
And just how big is it getting a goal late in that second period there? You mentioned it a little bit earlier about getting around Sauter there, but getting a goal that late in the period after Erie had scored, just how big of a momentum boost was that for the club?
Yeah, it means a lot. I've been practicing that move a lot, so for that to pay off meant a lot. And just a good quick up, that's what we've been practicing, quick up, and it paid off.
And lastly, about all the stoppages and things like that, it was a longer game tonight, a lot of after the whistle stuff. When a game goes extra long like that, is it harder to keep yourself in the game for 60 minutes or when there's just a lot of stuff going on?
Yeah, obviously, there's going to be a different adversity throughout the game, so you got to learn to battle with it and, play through it.
Thanks, Easton.
Thanks.
There was Easton Cowan from the London Knights, Toronto Maple Leafs prospect, and again, just on a tear here in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Colin, he seems like he's a lot more confident in interviews than maybe his rookie year. Seems like he's been used to the process now, going through it, 3 deep playoff runs with the Knights, and an OHL championship last year, some games up in the National Hockey League as well. Just seems like he's really matured as a player and as a person off the ice over this last little bit.
100%. And you got to be ready for it. In the media train, right? You're drafted by the Toronto Maple Leafs. And there's no hiding there in Toronto. So it's nothing that the OHL interviews are nothing compared to what he's going to get in the National Hockey League. And he sounds like a leader on a mission. You can tell there's unfinished business in London, and that's just the vibes you get, right? And they've been through this process. And we've talked about this at so many different levels in hockey, right, where the teams that have just been through it, when the core has been through it for a number of years now, like this core have, they know what they're going through. They know the process. They know the grind. They know what it takes. And, getting in that interview, that's kind of what the big takeaway was. It sounds like a guy on a mission. It sounds like they know what their process is. And they know that they have one more game, the task at hand, game 3, and then game 4, but they know they're living in the moment. That's how you play in the postseason. You have to do that. You can't look too far ahead. You can't get too high. You can't get too low. You got to be even keel, and that's kind of what we heard from Easton Cowan tonight. Really good interview, Brandon, and also to Brian Payette as well. Nice to hear the voice. Ryan's a great guy.
Oh, yeah. He asked him about Dylan Hunter as well, who took a puck off the face and left the game. So wonder if he's going to be – he's a Hunter. He's a tough customer, so he'll be behind the bench again. But, yeah.
He's a tough guy. Hopefully Dylan's okay, but definitely you imagine that going into Erie. I remember hearing from London radio play-by-play Mike Stubbs. Mike's incredible. Telling a story about a hot dog stand outside of the EIA when the London Knights in the postseason. The last time the Otters and Knights met in the postseason, hot dogs just getting peppered at the London Knights bus outside of the arena in Erie. So a lot of stories, but you imagine the hot dog stand now when Dylan Hunter comes off with a black eye. You're gonna look pretty tough, right? And the bad boy London Knights, they like to play that role, and they love that. I don't think that phases them. I know Erie's gonna be all over them, but I don't think that phases London Knights. I think they got to get a good start though, but I think they've been through it. Playing in that Memorial Cup final last year against Saginaw, I know it didn't go their way, but they learned a ton.
And before we get out of here tonight, because it's been a late night, we're going to let Colin go here shortly, but it's going to be our stick tap of the game, brought to you by Hockey Stick Man. Pro Stock Hockey Sticks for major junior teams right up to the NHL teams for half the retail price. A stress-free shopping experience from start to finish. Check them out at hockeystickman.ca to join their mission of saving hockey families money. Colin, who's your player of the game tonight?
First off, I think if I had a hockey stick, man, I'd be in the National Hockey League. Great ad, Brandon, as I mentioned the advertisements for it. That's a great ad for you. But no, Denver Barkey to be 4-point night +4. I think that everything he brings to the table, and like we mentioned earlier on in the show, that when him and Cowan are humming, they're so dangerous. And Barkey, I mean, he got under his skin a little bit early on. He found his game in the second half of the game, and really brought it for the London Knights. I mean, he's your captain. You need your captain to show up in big games, and you need your star players to take over games, and that's what he did tonight. He's a star, and I think that with Denver Barkey, what he brings to the table every night for them as their captain, and I just thought that he's my player of the game. He had 4 points. He was a +4. I mean, what more can you say about his night? He was a huge part of their victory.
Are you concerned at all with Dickinson and Bonk only having 3 points combined through the first 2 games? I know Bonk has really focused on defense this year, where his point total was less than what it was last year. I think that's something that the Flyers definitely wanted to see from him, and the Knights as well, putting him in more of a shutdown role. So he's focusing more on defense. But are you expecting more from what you usually see from the back end of the Knights, or is that even like a criticism at this point because they've been putting up monstrous numbers?
No, that's just playoff hockey. There's no concern at all. Look at the pass Dickinson made on that outlet to Barkey on the Cowan goal, on the second Cowan goal tonight. I mean, not at all. There is actually negative concern about Oliver Bonk and Sam Dickinson. Those 2 guys are studs. And honestly, they're even tougher to play against because you respect what they can do offensively, but you know how good they are defensively. And you need committing to defense. You got to commit to it. The famous John Tortorella clip on the HBO series at 24/7, Road to the Winter Classic, when you see you defend, right? Defend. And that's what you need in the postseason. They know what it's all about. They went through the heartbreak last year in Saginaw when they were dominant. Right, they beat everybody except for one team in one game, and they beat that team in a series. And I think that they know what it takes, and I think that's kind of the effort that you need. You need to commit. It's a team game, and if that's what makes a team win, defensive hockey, it does. That's what they're going to do, right? They're unselfish players, and props to them. Props to them for accepting this. They're going to be National Hockey League players up maybe even next year. That's huge, and that's what's going to get them to That's going to get them to the NHL even sooner, playing this way. No, honestly, it should be more of a proud thing to see them change their game like that, right? They could have said, hey, I'm a first-round pick. I'm not changing my game, right? I want to put up all these points. But that doesn't make you a pro hockey player, and those guys unselfishly did it for the team, and that's how you win. That's how you win, and that's why they're so good. When you accept that role and when you accept to play a certain way to win and pay the price, that's what it takes. And honestly, I think that's great. There's no concern there at all.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up to make sure that you were on the same page as I was, that I think it's a good thing that, they're focusing more on the defensive side and not just trying to have cookie night in the point department.
100% agree with you.
Yep. So, Colin, that's it. 7-2 victory for the London Knights in Game 2. Series is going to shift back to the EIA on Tuesday and Thursday again. We'll let you guys know if we're going to be able to do post-game shows for those. I know Colin has other commitments with the Bulldogs playing in Oshawa that night, but we'll try to figure something out. I plan on being in Erie for at least one of the 2 games up there. But as far as tonight's game live from Canada Life Place, thank you to those that tuned in live on our Armchair GM Sports Network YouTube channel and those listening to this the next day in your favorite on-demand audio platform. Big thank you to Colin Ward, for staying up late for this one and being able to join me. Catch the OHL in 60 podcast, latest episodes up. And I know you guys are doing big things with the Dogcast and the Bulldogs Audio Network as well. But thanks for joining me tonight.
Yeah, no problem, Brandon. Thanks for having me. Always fun to talk hockey. I'll talk hockey in my sleep. So anytime. All good. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. You haven't heard the last to call in here as we go forward here in the playoffs. But the London Knights, again, now lead the best-of-7 series 2-0 here in the second round of the Western Conference of the OHL playoffs in 2025 as it will shift back to Erie coming this Tuesday. So for Colin Ward, my name is Brandon Caputo. That's it live from Canada Life Place here in London in front of 9,061. Thank you to everybody that tuned in. Have yourself a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again next week.